Okay, let's see if I'm able to do this without Haven waking up. We'll see, because she's not a good napper anymore. Okay, so I did a poll, which was stupid of me because I honestly don't care what people think. So I'm doing the video regardless of how anybody feels. If this kind of stuff makes you uncomfortable in any way, don't watch it. If it's a trigger for you, it's up to you if you want to watch it. I know it's something that some people look at as like ashamed to talk about or afraid to talk about, but we're all different. I think with some things it's hard to talk about, but I'm by myself, and so I'm going to talk about it. So Doug and I found out that we were expecting baby number 2, like right after Christmas. It was early. I still hadn't even missed my period yet. I just took a test and there was lines, and the lines kept darker and darker and darker. I had symptoms. My due date was September 9th, 2019. And usually your doctor, my doctor, doesn't really see you until you're about 8 weeks along, because they're just easier to see on an external ultrasound that way. I wasn't like, I think I was more worried with this pregnancy than I was with Haven, and I'm not sure why. I think something in my heart like was telling me that something wasn't right, something was wrong. I don't think this paranoid with Haven. I was nauseous, extremely tired. Some weird things started happening that I won't share on here because I just think like it's like just TMI. But I did call in concerns to this, and we still aren't sure to this day if it had anything to do with the miscarriage or not. So we'll never know. I don't really think I need to know. So we're just going to move on from that. On the 29th of January, we went into the doctor's office for my ultrasound. My HCG levels, which is the pregnancy hormones, were like skyrocketing. Everything looked fantastic. I was healthy. My doctor was super happy that I was pregnant again. Obviously, that's her job. Haven and Doug went into the room with me. I was so nervous. Like, you can ask Doug. I was just like, I just want to see the baby. I want to know that, like, the baby's okay. Because, like I said, I'd had some symptoms that I didn't have with Haven, so that was freaking me out. But I wasn't, like, bright red spotting, so nothing was proven. So I'm just like, everything's okay. I'm a woman of faith, so I just kept thinking, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And with that, sometimes our prayers are not answered the way we want them to be. So this ended up being one of those situations. So right away, when I saw my doctor's face, I knew that we had lost the baby. It was just like I knew something was wrong. Doug was recording, so I told him to stop. He even started to cry, so he had to take her out. So he eventually came back in later, but we'll get to that. The doctor had told me that, you know, the baby didn't make it. Not much happened at this appointment because you can't do much, unfortunately, as crappy as that sounds, at one of these appointments when you find out that there's no heartbeat, that the baby's already starting to. In this case, the baby was already starting to. The baby had, like, I don't even want to know if I can say the word without throwing up because it makes me sick to my stomach. Basically, your body just, like, takes care of the baby. And she was a little confused because everything else was still growing, because that's what the woman's body does. Like, my body was still making a home for the baby because that's where they grow and thrive for the next, you know, until you deliver. So, I'm trying to remember this. I should have wrote it down. She had just, my doctor's awesome. She had kind of sat there and let me sob. I don't think I realized how loud I was being. Doug came back in and was like, he knew. Then one of the nurses took Haven for us and put on Mickey Mouse Clubhouse for her. I had told her some of my symptoms right before Doug had came in, and she's like, it kind of sounds like maybe something's being infected, which is super dangerous if anything is left inside of you after having a baby. It's the same way with a miscarriage. You want to try to get everything out as soon as possible if there's no baby because of a risk of infection, and that can be like fatal for a mom. And so she quickly kind of gave me my options to, you know, go home and play the waiting game and to see if I could miscarry naturally, which at this point she said that she highly didn't recommend at all. She wanted me to get a DNC procedure because of the infection that we thought was going on already, which makes sense because like all of my symptoms had kind of led up to an infection. I think this is when it started to scare me a little bit. I was already emotional after hearing that I was pregnant, but there was no living child inside of me. And I think at that point, you just kind of blame yourself, which isn't fair. That's my biggest piece of advice for anybody who ever miscarries, is you can't blame yourself for something that happened like this. It's never your fault, regardless of what you feel. But at this point, I was pretty upset with myself. And my doctor doesn't like that. So, miscarriages, it's 1 in 4 women miscarry, which is a really high number. And never thinking it'll happen to you isn't a bad thing. I just feel like we need to be educated about it more because you don't hear about it a lot. You don't hear women talk about it because women are so ashamed for some reason to talk about it. And I get it. It's when you first find out that your body, that you didn't just lose a pregnancy, you lost a child. When you find out you're pregnant, all of these things went through my mind. Haven's going to be a big sister. I'm going to grow another human being. This is going to be awesome. I was excited. My heart was happy. Like January, it was like the month of Riley, getting ready for to have another baby and to grow our family and watch that baby grow up. It's not just about, even though that is like amazing, holding your child for the first time and seeing them be itty bitty. It's about watching them grow into a person, and you wonder what they'll be like, what they'll look like. All of that stuff is just taken away from you at that point when you find out that you lost a child. So I get really upset when I hear people are like, oh, it makes so-and-so, like, especially people who have never lost a child, it makes them uncomfortable. I don't give a flying fart what makes you uncomfortable. I'm going to talk about my experience and my child as much as I want because it's my right to. It's 2019 and I just feel like we should be more open about it because it happens so often and it's tragic. And I just feel like women feel so ashamed like I did when I first found out that we had miscarried, because it was a we. Doug and I both lost a baby, not just me. That's also important for people to remember, to always make sure that you include the dad in this, because even though I know women have this different experience, they both experience it differently, both lost a child, I just feel like we should never be ashamed to talk about it. This is a natural act. There was nothing I can have done to prevent losing the baby, no matter how many times I tried to think, was it this, was it that? I mean, my doctor literally kept saying, there was nothing that you could have done, even though she's like, I know you would have done whatever. My doctor is a very personable person. She's awesome. I appreciated her support through everything, because that can make your experience 10 times worse. she had told me that, you know, and I'm sure a lot of women know this, but if you didn't, most miscarriages happen because of a chromosomal abnormality. Something didn't form right. Things just weren't right. And the baby wasn't developing like it was supposed to, or something, you know, that you couldn't see happened. And it sucks because I get it. A lot of us want answers, when it happened, why it happened, but we don't usually get that answer. And I've really come to peace with it, like not knowing. I told my doctor that I serve an awesome God who doesn't owe me any explanation on why he chose to take my baby. A lot of people were like, well, aren't you mad at God? Or don't you feel like that was terrible? It was an awful experience. I hope that I never experience it again. I don't know if I will. It breaks my heart for anybody who will ever experience it. I've never felt grief like this before. And so I was telling Doug, like, you don't know when it'll hit you again. You know, like my doctor told me you'll wake up some days and just feel at ease and fine. And some days where you can't, like, you feel like a robot. And I've had both of those days. I've lost people that I cared about and loved, but this is just like a different level of grief. It's terrifying. You feel the heartbreak for sure. Like it's a different kind of pain that I've never felt before. It's in like the pit of your stomach. It's hard, but it's possible to get through. Trusting that God had a will for this. It wasn't a cruel intention. I think that a lot of people think that it's just like so evil and cruel. But I'm putting my trust in God that there was a reason. There's a reason why it happened to me. There's a reason why this kind of stuff happens, and sitting around and being bitter doesn't make it go away or fix it. I 110% know that Riley's in heaven. And to me, that's an awesome thing to know. For women out there who don't have faith, it scares me for them because they don't have the kind of peace that I have in my heart. It doesn't make the grief go away. It just gives me hope and peace, knowing that one day I will hold Riley. Not the way I planned or wished for. But like I said, our prayers don't always get answered the way that we want them to. And it doesn't feel fair, but anyway, I opted for the I should say opted because it's an operation. It's scary. We decided the D&C would be safer. I won't even go with the complications I had to go through to get to that procedure because it was awful. It was making my situation 10 times worse. We were having troubles with scheduling. They were like canceling my procedure, telling me I couldn't get it done, which was terrifying because I wanted to get everything taken care of as soon as possible because, like, I had already lost my baby. I have a child at home who needs me. I need to be her mother because she needs me and I'm still here for her. And I also need to take care of the situation as soon as possible so that my physical being can start to heal. I had the D&C Saturday the 2nd of February, I think. Terrifying experience. Bitter. I felt bitterness this day. And the night before. The night before going in for my D&C, I had to take 2 pills. This is the same exact thing that they had used to induce me with Haven. I remember this pill. I remember how it made me feel. So having doubled my dose, I was terrified to do this at home through the night. And I'd warned Doug. I was like, this is going to be a long night. I'm going to be up with contractions and all night, because that's what it does. This pill dilates you and gets you ready to deliver. Except for this time, I wasn't getting a baby out of it. So I just remember being mad this day. I remember sitting in my parents' bathroom after I had ate a full bowl of cereal, because you have to eat with it. It's super strong. And looking at the pill in my hand and just feeling like, 1 second, Haven's awake. Okay, false alarm, she's not awake. I remember holding the pill in my hand and thinking, being afraid to take it. Even though I knew that there was no way that not taking this pill would change anything. It made me feel guilty. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't want to end this pregnancy. I was showing. I was getting used to rubbing my bump. Haven was kissing my belly, practicing the baby names that we liked. So, like, taking this pill to me was like, I don't want to do this way. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. I was bitter. 1 second.